Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something that's absolutely critical in the world of AI, model governance. We're going to look at the playbook for the person at the center of it all, the AI guardian. Let's jump right in. So let's start with a really basic question. What happens when an AI, humming away quietly in the background, just gets it wrong? Well, the fallout can be anything from a minor annoyance to a full-blown disaster, seriously impacting a business and, even people's lives. This is precisely why you can't just wing it. And that's where AI model governance comes in. This is the big idea we're tackling today. Think of it as a formal rulebook, a framework to make sure an AI system does exactly what we expect it to do, and keeps doing it reliably, fairly, and legally, from the day it's born to the day it's retired. It's the essential safety net. So how do you actually build that safety net? Well, it all starts with a blueprint. And I mean a real blueprint, not just some vague idea. It's about creating a solid foundation for managing AI responsibly, right from the very beginning. Now, at the heart of this whole operation is a person, the AI project manager. For our purposes, let's call them the AI guardian. They are the one person responsible for making sure all the controls, all the processes, and all the documentation are in place to keep that AI model on the straight and narrow. The Guardian follows a very clear path called the Model Lifecycle. Every single AI model goes on this journey. It starts with development and validation, then it's deployed into the real world where it's monitored constantly, then it's updated as needed, and eventually it's retired. This whole process creates a perfect auditable trail from start to finish. But, this blueprint isn't just a tech checklist. It absolutely insists on some crucial safety checks. Things like making sure the model is fair, that it passes ethical reviews, that it complies with all privacy rules, and, super important, that there's a clear plan for what to do when something inevitably goes wrong. It's about baking responsibility in from the start. Okay, let's talk about one of the scariest things that can happen in AI management. Untracked changes. This is how you end up with chaos, and it's why we need to talk about preventing so-called rogue models. This right here? This is the mantra. A rogue model is an unapproved, untracked version of an AI that could be running in your systems, making decisions without anyone knowing what it is or how it got there. The number one goal of good governance is to make sure this never, ever happens. So how do you stop these rogues? Simple. You make everything traceable. We're talking about a perfect digital logbook where you can find the exact version of the model, the exact data set it was trained on, and the exact code that makes it run. It's all about accountability. And this isn't some manual pen and paper process. Oh no, we've got a whole professional toolkit for this. Things like model registries to keep track of every model version, Git for all the code, and even special tools just for versioning the massive data sets. It all comes together to create a bulletproof audit trail. So the big takeaway here is that nothing, and I mean nothing, gets changed on a whim. If a team wants to tweak the model, they have to file a formal request, figure out what the impact will be, test it like crazy, and then get an official sign-off. This is what stops untested changes from breaking everything. Okay, so the model is deployed, we're done, right? Haha, not even close. Getting the model out the door is just the beginning. Now comes the really important part, the constant health check, where we monitor how it's actually doing out there in the wild. Just like a doctor monitoring a patient, the AI Guardian keeps a close eye on a dashboard of vital signs. They're tracking things like accuracy, of course, but also error rates, how fast it is, and critically, fairness metrics to make sure its predictions are equitable for everyone. Now, this monitoring is crucial for catching a huge problem in AI called drift. There are two main flavors. First, there's data drift. That's when the real-world data starts looking different from the data the model was trained on. Then there's concept drift, which is a bit sneakier. That's when the relationship between the data points changes. A good monitoring system catches both. And what's the point of all this obsessive tracking? It's pretty simple, really. You spot when a model is starting to go off the rails. It lets you step in and fix the problem before it starts spitting out bad or even harmful decisions. So when that monitoring dashboard flashes a warning sign that a model is drifting, what's next? Well, that kicks off a very careful, very controlled process of updating and retraining the model to get it back on track. You don't just retrain a model because you feel like it. The AI Guardian is looking for specific triggers. Sometimes it's just a planned, scheduled update. Other times it's because performance suddenly drops off a cliff. Or maybe there's a flood of new data, or even a new law that forces a change. And before any new version of that model gets released, it has to pass a super strict final exam. It gets checked all over again for bias and fairness, it's validated for security and privacy, and it goes through a whole battery of tests to make sure the update didn't break something else. Only then does it get the final green light. All right, let's take a step back and bring this all together. All these things we've talked about, the life cycle, the versioning, the constant monitoring, the safe updates, they all serve one primary goal: making sure the AI model stays compliant and ethical. The Guardian's job is to make sure the model plays by a whole bunch of different rulebooks. We're talking about major data privacy laws like GDPR in Europe, the company's own ethical AI principles, and tough security standards from places like NIST. It's a lot to keep track of. And this is not a passive role either. The Guardian is in the driver's seat. They're the ones leading the audits, making sure all the documentation is perfect, and enforcing strict security measures, like who can access the model and making sure every single action is logged. So, if we boil it all down, the AI Guardian's entire playbook comes down to this pledge. They make sure every model is governed by a clear life cycle, is perfectly versioned and controlled, is monitored around the clock, is safely updated, and at all times is fully compliant. This is what trustworthy AI looks like. And that brings us to our final thought. The frameworks we've talked about are absolutely essential for the AI we have today, but it raises a much bigger question for tomorrow. As AI gets exponentially smarter and more powerful, can our human-led governance actually keep up? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.